Before we talk about anything in particular, it can help to settle into the space you are in. If you are sitting, let your shoulders drop a little. If you are lying down, let your arms rest where they want to rest. There is nothing you need to do quickly. There is no need to hold anything tightly. In a moment, we will think about a pencil. It is a small object, and it is a familiar one. Because it is familiar, it can be easy to let your mind drift. You do not need to picture a perfect pencil. You can picture any pencil you have seen before. It may be in a cup on a desk, with pens and markers nearby. It may be in a drawer with tape and spare batteries. It may be in a backpack, tucked beside a notebook. It may be near a calendar, or a notepad, or a small stack of mail. It may be in a craft bin, resting against scissors and paper. It may be in a toolbox, or on a garage shelf. It may be anywhere, and that is fine. As we go, the words will be slow and steady. We will stay with plain details. We will notice the pencil in a calm way. We will notice how it is held and how it makes a mark. We will notice the small routines around it, like sharpening and erasing. These routines are ordinary. They repeat in small loops without needing much thought. If your attention wanders, that is normal. You can return to the idea of a pencil resting somewhere nearby. A pencil does not ask for much. It waits. It stays still. It is ready when a hand reaches for it. Now we can move on. Chapter 1a, Plain definition and what counts as a pencil. A pencil is a handheld writing and marking tool. It leaves a mark by rubbing a solid core onto a surface. The core wears down a little as the mark is made. It is a quiet process. The pencil does not need ink. Nothing needs to dry. A line appears, and it stays there. In many everyday pencils, the core is made from graphite mixed with clay. People often call it a lead pencil, but that is a common misnomer. In daily use, the important part is simple. The mix can be adjusted so the core feels harder or softer. A harder feel tends to make a lighter mark. A softer feel tends to make a darker mark. This is not always the same, and it can vary. A pencil is not only the core. It is also the barrel that you hold in your hand. Often the barrel is wood. Sometimes there is a coating on the outside, like paint or lacquer. Sometimes the wood is left bare. Sometimes there is printed text, like a grade label. And often, though not always, there is an eraser on the end. When an eraser is included, it is held on with a small metal band. Some pencils have no eraser at all. That can be a simple choice. It can also reduce the number of parts that can loosen over time. Some pencils are sold pre-sharpened. Some are unsharpened. This may vary. It can help to say what a pencil is not, in a gentle way. A pencil is different from a pen because it does not use flowing ink. A pencil is different from a marker because it does not lay down a wet mark. A pencil makes a dry line from a solid core. That is part of why it is used for drafts and temporary notes. The pencil is a complete consumer item. It is a core, a barrel, and sometimes an eraser end. It is designed for controlled wearing down. The core is meant to be used up slowly. The barrel is meant to be held and sharpened. That is the whole simple idea. Now we can move on. Recap: a pencil is held in the hand and leaves a controllable mark from a solid core. Chapter 2: Names, labels, and the words people use. In everyday speech, most people just say pencil. Some people say graphite pencil or writing pencil. Some people say woodcase pencil. Some people say lead pencil, even though the core is typically graphite mixed with clay. The name stays because it is familiar. It is a habit of speech, and it usually does not cause trouble. Many pencil names are tied to where the pencil is used. A school pencil is an expected kind of pencil, often kept in a box, a backpack, or a desk. An office pencil is similar, kept in a drawer, a cup, or an organizer. A drawing pencil may be chosen when someone wants a certain line or shading feel. A carpenter pencil is usually flatter and sturdier, made to resist rolling and to mark rough materials more predictably. A golf pencil is a short pencil that is easy to keep in small places, and it often has no eraser. A stub pencil is a pencil that has been used down until it is short. There are also words that describe shape. A hex barrel means the outside has 6 sides. This matters because it resists rolling off a desk. A round barrel is smooth, but it can roll more easily. A triangular barrel guides finger placement for some people, and it can reduce rolling. Some pencils are flat or oval, as in many carpenter pencils. That shape tends to stay put on a surface. Some words describe size and grip. Jumbo pencils are thicker. They can feel easier to hold for small hands. They can also feel easier for people who want a wider grip. They may need a larger sharpener opening. This may vary by pencil and by sharpener. Some words describe performance. There are grade labels like HB, H, and B. These labels are a shorthand for how the core behaves. A middle grade like HB is often used for general writing. Harder grades, the ones that use H, tend to make lighter marks and keep a point longer. Softer grades, the ones that use B, tend to make darker marks and wear faster. They can also smudge more. In some places, a number 2 label is common and is often aligned with HB, but the mapping can vary. There are also words for small parts. The metal band that holds an eraser is often called a ferrule. The way it is pressed onto the wood can be called a crimp. The eraser itself can be made from different compounds, such as rubber or vinyl. In use, erasers leave crumbs, sometimes called eraser dust. These crumbs can be brushed away. Vocabulary is mostly a shorthand for expected behavior. Hex suggests it will not roll as easily. Jumbo suggests it will feel different in the hand. A grade label suggests how dark it will write and how often it may need sharpening. Small words on a pencil often predict small differences in use. Now we can move on. Recap: names and labels are simple clues about shape, feel, and everyday behavior. Chapter 3: A quiet timeline of practical changes. The pencil did not become what it is in one sudden moment. It is more like a long series of small stabilizing improvements. A long time ago, people used graphite as a marking material. The exact timing can vary, and it is not always the same in every telling. Early holders could be simple. Graphite could be wrapped with string, paper, or wood. Wrapping reduced hand smudging. It also made the stick easier to hold. Over time, a wooden casing became common. This also has dates that can vary. But the reason is easy to understand. Wood protects the core. Wood keeps hands cleaner. Wood makes the tool easier to carry. A casing turns a soft marking stick into a more durable item. Later, core recipes improved. Graphite blended with clay made it possible to standardize how hard the core would be. The exact origin details can vary, but the everyday result is clear. A more consistent recipe means more consistent writing performance. It means buying a box of pencils and finding that they behave in a similar way. As demand grew, pencil making expanded at factory scale. Factories improved throughput. The reason was routine. Schools, offices, and administration needed large quantities. Consistency mattered because the tool was used every day. People wanted the pencil to feel predictable. They wanted the point to sharpen without surprises. They wanted the line to look familiar. Grading terms became more standardized in the broad sense. Systems like H and B help people choose. The origins can vary, and details are not always the same. But the goal was simple. Labels reduce confusion. They make purchasing more repeatable. Another practical change was the attached eraser. At some point, eraser attachment became common. This also has timing that can vary. A metal band made it possible to keep an eraser on the pencil. That was convenient. It meant fewer separate items to carry. It also meant one more part that could loosen, and one more surface that could age and harden. Over time, coatings and printed text became common. A coating protects the wood and makes a standard appearance. Printed labels help identify the grade and the general kind of pencil. A bright finish can make a pencil easy to spot. Specific reasons for common finishes can vary, and this is not always the same. But the broader pattern is steady. Many changes are motivated by routine needs, like lower breakage in shipping, quicker factory steps, and fewer complaints about splintering or loose parts. The object becomes more predictable rather than more complex. Now we can move on. Recap: the pencil changed through small steps toward consistency and everyday convenience. Chapter 4: Where pencils live inside a home. A pencil often has more than one place where it can be found. It moves because it is light and easy to carry. It is used in one room, then stored in another. Sometimes it has a steady home. Sometimes it drifts. One common place is a desk drawer. The drawer may hold pens, paper clips, tape, and small objects. A pencil in a drawer often gets scuffed. The printed text can rub off from friction against other items. The coating can get small marks. This does not stop the pencil from writing. It is simply part of how it ages. Another commonplace is a cup on a desk. A cup keeps pencils upright. It keeps them from being crushed. It can also mix pencils with pens and markers. Over time, graphite dust can appear at the bottom of the cup. A pencil stored point up can reduce tip damage if the cup is stable. This may vary. Some cups tip easily. When a cup tips bump into each other, and points can break. A kitchen junk drawer is another familiar place. A pencil may be used for a quick note, like a grocery list on scrap paper. Then it goes back into the drawer with other household items. It may sit near batteries and tape. It may stay there for a long time, waiting. When it is pulled out again, the point may be a little blunt. The pencil still works. The pencil does not need to be perfect to be useful. In a home office, pencils can be in organizers, trays, and containers. There may be a place for writing tools near a calendar or a notepad. In these places, pencils are often used for planning and notes that might change. A pencil fits well with a paper calendar because the mark can be erased and rewritten. This small ability changes the feeling of planning. Plans feel provisional. That may be part of why pencils remain around. Pencils also live in tool areas. A pencil can be kept in a toolbox, a workbench drawer, or on a garage shelf. Tool storage can be rough. Pencils can get dents. The tip can break when it is pressed against heavier items. Sometimes the metal band at the end is crushed slightly. Sometimes the wood is marked by contact with other tools. This may vary, but it is common. Backpacks are another place. A pencil carried loose in a bag can be crushed. It can pick up smudges. The wood can dent. The tip can break. Later, the pencil is found shortened or with a loosened eraser end. A pencil in a case is protected more. A pencil loose among heavier objects is protected less. This is not always the same, but it is a familiar pattern. Storage decisions show up later as wear. A cup protects from crushing but invites scuffs. A drawer invites rubbing and paint wear. A bag invites breakage from pressure. Where a pencil sits between uses shapes how it ages. Now we can move on. Recap: the pencil lives in ordinary places, and storage quietly shapes how it wears. Chapter 5: Typical size and feel without measuring too much. Most pencils feel familiar in the hand because they are made to fit common routines. They fit common sharpeners. They fit common cups and drawers. They fit into backpacks and small organizers. This boring compatibility is one reason the pencil remains common. There is still a range, and this may vary. Some pencils are short, like a golf pencil. A short pencil can feel more end-heavy. It can be harder to control for long writing. It is compact, and it stores easily. Other pencils are longer, the kind that feels like the standard choice for daily writing. Many people replace a pencil when it becomes too short to hold comfortably. Some keep short pencils as spares. Some discard them. Some use a sleeve tool to hold a stub longer. This may vary. There is also a range in thickness. Many everyday pencils have a moderate thickness. Some are larger, like jumbo pencils. A thicker pencil can feel easier to grip for small hands. It can reduce pressure points for some people. It can also take up more space, and it may need a larger sharpener opening. A standard pencil tends to match the hole of a common sharpener, and that helps the pencil stay easy to use. Shape changes the feel too. A hex shape resists rolling. Some people like the stable feel. Some people notice the edges in the fingers. A round pencil can feel smooth. It can also roll off the desk if it is set down without care. A triangular shape guides the fingers for some users. It can feel like it suggests where the hand should rest. This is not always the same, and preferences can vary. Some people prefer a flat shape for marking rough materials, where the pencil is often set down and picked up repeatedly. The surface also matters. Some pencils have a slick coating. A slick surface can feel clean and easy to wipe. It can also feel slippery, especially with sweaty hands. Some pencils have a more matte feel. A matte surface can feel less slippery. It can also hold dirt a bit more. This may vary. Some pencils are bare wood. Bare wood does not chip like a coating can. It absorbs oils and moisture. It can stain and swell slightly over time. When it swells and dries again, the eraser end can loosen, and this may vary with storage. If a pencil has an eraser, the end can feel a little different in balance. The metal band adds a small end weight. It is not much, but it can change the feel slightly. Some pencils skip the eraser end. That removes a common point of loosening. It also changes the routine because erasing needs a separate eraser. The feel in the hand comes from small factors like thickness, edges, and surface friction. People rarely measure these. They just notice when a pencil feels slippery, or tiring, or steady. Most pencils feel similar because they are made to fit shared routines. Now we can move on. Recap: most pencils feel familiar, but small differences in length, thickness, shape, and surface change the daily feel. Chapter 6: Day in the life routines of short repeated uses. Many pencil interactions are brief. A pencil is picked up, a few words are written, and it is set down again. The point dulls slowly across many small sessions, not only in one long sitting. That is part of why pencils end up everywhere. In the morning, a pencil may appear in the kitchen. A quick grocery list is written on scrap paper. Then the pencil is returned to a drawer. It shares space with other items. Later, it may be used again for a label on a box, or a reminder note. The pencil does not mind being used in pieces. It is comfortable with interruptions. At a desk, a pencil is often used for quick notes during calls. It may rotate between the hand and the desktop. The tip becomes blunt and is tolerated until later. The user may not sharpen right away. They may accept a slightly dull point because it still works. A slightly dull pencil can write more smoothly on rough paper than a very sharp point. This may vary, but it is a common experience. The pencil is set down, picked up, and set down again. It becomes part of the rhythm of the desk. During homework, pencil use can become a loop. Write a line, then erase a word, then rewrite it. Eraser crumbs build up. They are brushed to the side. The pencil may be dropped. Later, it is sharpened. Sometimes the dropping causes tiny fractures in the core, and the tip starts snapping more often. The problem appears later, in small annoyances. It feels like the pencil is suddenly fragile, even though the damage happened earlier. This may vary. For puzzles, pencil use is often lighter. A crossword or a number puzzle can involve frequent erasing. The user may prefer a harder grade for clean changes. Harder grades tend to leave a lighter mark and can smudge less. A harder grade can also keep a point longer. That can mean fewer interruptions for sharpening. The pencil is used gently, and the page stays cleaner. A pencil can also be used for calendar updates. A paper calendar is rewritten. Plans change. An appointment is moved. A line is erased and written again. The pencil is chosen because it feels reversible. It supports the idea that the plan is allowed to change. On thin paper, erasing can scuff. On thicker paper, it can be smoother. This may vary. In home projects, a pencil may be used for measuring and marking. Lines are made on wood or drywall. Later, those lines may be sanded or painted over. The pencil is stored in a toolbox. Tool storage can lead to dents and tip breaks and a slightly crushed eraser end. This may vary, but it is common. Some people keep a pencil in the toolbox because it can mark dusty surfaces better than some pens. That is a quiet advantage. In crafts, pencils trace patterns. They live in a craft bin with scissors and glue. The coating may get sticky if it touches residue. The pencil still works, but it feels less pleasant. A mild soap on a cloth can help without soaking the pencil, and then the pencil is dried promptly. The point of cleaning is mostly keeping the barrel comfortable to hold and keeping the tip intact. Some households have a shared pencil. Multiple people use it. It migrates between rooms. The grade markings wear off. No one remembers where it came from. But it still writes. It is simple, and it keeps doing its job. It is often found again, even when it goes missing for a while. Now we can move on. Recap. Pencil use is made of small repeated moments, short loops of writing, pausing, and returning. Chapter 7: Sharpening as a household micro-task. Sharpening is a kind of maintenance that happens often, but not always with attention. The purpose is simple. Sharpening forms a usable point. It removes wooden core so the tip can make a clean line. People have different preferences. Some like a long, fine point for small writing. Others accept a shorter, sturdier point because it breaks less. This may vary, and both approaches are normal. Sharpening is also a choice about timing. Some people sharpen early, as soon as the point feels dull. They like the feeling of a fresh point. Other people wait. They write with a blunt tip until the pencil feels slow or the line feels too wide. A blunt tip can be stable. It can also be smoother on rough paper. This may vary. The sharpener is part of the pencil's home system. Some sharpeners are small and handheld. They are easy to keep in a drawer. They can travel in a backpack. Some sharpeners sit on a desk. In either case, the blade matters. A sharp blade cuts cleanly. A dull blade can tear the wood fibers and lead to splintering. It can also stress the core. The result can be a point that looks fine but snaps quickly. This can feel like a pencil problem when it is really a sharpener problem. Sharpening creates waste. There are shavings. There is also dust from the core. Pencil shavings are a mix of wood and core dust, not just wood. The shavings gather in the sharpener, or on the desk, or on the floor. A full sharpener makes mess. Emptying the shavings regularly is part of keeping the routine calm. It is a small task, repeated many times. If shavings build up, they can spill into a drawer. They can leave grey dust in the bottom of a cup. They can cling to other items. This is not dramatic. It is simply the byproduct of using a pencil. Sharpening also changes the pencil right away. A fresh point makes a thinner line. It can make handwriting look more uniform. It can also feel more precise. A long point can snap more easily, especially with heavy pressure. A shorter point can be more durable. This may vary with the grade and the way the pencil is used. There are quiet defects that show up during sharpening. If the core is not centered in the wood, sharpening can make one side thin. That can lead to splintering on one side and frequent snaps. If the bonding inside is weak, the core may rattle or spin. This can show up as a strange feeling in the sharpener, or a tip that breaks and falls away. Drops onto hard floors can also cause internal cracks in the core. Those cracks can lead to repeated tip breakage later. In a household, these problems are usually handled in a simple way. People try sharpening again. They try lighter pressure. If the problem repeats, they replace the pencil. Sharpening is maintenance, but it is also preference. It is a small task, but it shapes the whole experience. A pencil often behaves like the sharpener that maintains it. Now we can move on. Recap: sharpening is a small routine that controls the point and influences how smooth and reliable the pencil feels. Chapter 8: The eraser routine and how it changes paper. For many people, the pencil is not only about writing. It is also about erasing. Erasing is a kind of controlled rubbing. It lifts graphite particles from the paper surface. It is not a perfect undo. It changes the paper a little. After repeated cycles, a spot on the page can look slightly worn. It can feel softer or a bit rough. This may vary with paper type and pressure. Erasers come in different compounds. Some are rubber-like. Some are vinyl-like. They can feel different in use. A vinyl type can erase cleanly and leave clumped crumbs. A rubber type can harden with age and may smear if it is too soft. This is not always the same, and it can vary. In daily life, most people notice only the simple result. Either the eraser lifts the mark, or it smears it, or it scuffs the paper. Eraser crumbs are part of the routine. They build up in a small line. They can spread graphite if they're dragged across the page. Many people brush crumbs away with the side of the hand. That can add smudges, because the hand can carry graphite across the page. Some people brush crumbs away with a clean motion to the side. Some people tap the page lightly. Some use a scrap sheet under the hand. All of these are small habits. None of them are complicated. Erasers also age quietly. Over time, an eraser can become glossy. It can feel less effective. The user presses harder. That can scuff the paper more. A simple way to refresh the surface is to rub the eraser on clean paper until the surface looks fresh again. This is a small act of maintenance. It does not make the eraser new, but it can help. The eraser can also pick up oils and dirt. A dirty surface erases less well. It can smear instead of lifting. Keeping the eraser clean and dry helps. Some erasers crack with age. Some become hard and shiny. This may vary, and it depends on storage. Heat and sun can speed up hardening. Cool, dry storage can slow it. The differences are quiet, but they add up over time. Paper type matters too. Thin paper can peel and tear more easily when erased. Thicker paper can tolerate erasing better. This may vary. When the paper is delicate, people often use lighter pressure and more passes. Slower and lighter can be cleaner. It takes longer, but it can reduce damage. Some pencils omit erasers. That can reduce hardware steps and cost. It can also avoid the common complaint of a loose metal band or a hardened eraser that does not work well. When a pencil has no eraser, the user keeps a separate eraser or accepts that some marks stay. This is a different routine. It is still simple. Now we can move on. Recap: erasing is gentle rubbing that leaves crumbs and slowly changes the paper surface in small places. Chapter 9: Common small problems and the usual household responses. A pencil is simple, but it still has small problems. Most of them are solved with small actions. A broken tip is handled by sharpening and continuing. If the tip keeps snapping even after careful sharpening, the core may have tiny fractures from a past drop. Or the bonding inside may be weak. The usual response is to replace the pencil, because fixing it is not practical. Smudging is another common issue. Graphite can move from paper to skin and back to paper. Smudging increases when a hand rests on the writing line. Some people change where the hand rests. Some use a scrap paper under the hand. Some choose a harder grade, because harder grades tend to leave less loose graphite. This does not remove smudging completely. It just reduces it. Some pages will still have light grade transfer. This is normal. Rolling off a desk is a small annoyance. A hex barrel resists rolling. A round barrel rolls more easily. Some people change where they place the pencil. Some choose a shape that stays put. Some put the pencil into a cup when they pause. It is a small choice, but it can make the desk feel calmer. A pencil can also become lost in the home. Because it is small and light, it migrates. A pencil used in one room ends up in another. It can end up near the calendar. It can end up in a backpack. It can end up in the craft bin. It can end up in a drawer that is opened once a month. Later it is found again. This is normal. Many households respond by accumulating more pencils than they need. The object is inexpensive and easy to store, so replacement becomes easier than tracking. Labels wear off. The printed grade marking can fade. Then a pencil becomes harder to sort. The user may not remember if it is a middle grade or a harder one. For many tasks, this does not matter. The user adapts pressure and continues. For other tasks, sorting matters. A person doing careful puzzles may want a certain feel. A person doing small figures may want a consistent line. If the label is gone, the pencil is still usable, but it is less clear what it is. The eraser end can loosen. The metal band can wiggle. Sometimes the eraser detaches. Moisture changes in wood can influence loosening, and this may vary. Pulling the eraser sideways can also worsen loosening. In daily life, a loose eraser end is usually handled in a simple way. People switch to a separate eraser, or they choose another pencil. The barrel can get dents. Dents rarely affect writing, but they can affect comfort. A small dent can become a pressure point in the fingers. If the dent is annoying, the pencil is replaced. If the dent is mild, the pencil is kept. This is a quiet choice, made without much thought. The coating can chip. Small chips can leave flakes in a drawer. Often this is cosmetic. Sometimes it makes the pencil feel rough. Sometimes it just looks worn. This may vary. Many people keep using the pencil. Now we can move on. Recap: most pencil problems are handled with small adjustments, and replacement happens when the same annoyance repeats. Chapter 10: Why the pencil keeps being chosen. Even with wear and small problems, the pencil keeps being chosen. One reason is reversibility. A pencil mark can often be reduced. That matters for planning, drafting, and temporary labeling. A list can change. A schedule can change. A note can be corrected. The pencil fits the idea that a first attempt is allowed to change. Another reason is that the pencil works without drying time. The mark is there right away. It does not smear in the same way wet ink can smear, though graphite can still smudge. The pencil can be quiet too. Some people prefer it because it does not click like some pens. This may vary, but it is part of the everyday feel. The pencil is also predictable across many routines. It works for quick notes. It works for homework cycles of write and erase. It works for puzzle time. It works for light guidelines that can be erased later. It works for marking on rough materials in home projects. It can sit in a drawer for a long time and still function. It does not dry out. It simply waits. Compatibility matters too. People already have sharpeners. They already have storage spots. They already know how to hold and use a pencil. The pencil fits into existing household systems with very little planning. It is a low-commitment tool. It is small, simple, and familiar. The pencil is also easy to keep as a spare. A household might have a shared pencil that migrates. A home office might have a couple of writing tools. A toolbox might have a pencil for quick marks. A backpack might have a pencil for notes. Even when a pencil becomes short, it can still work for tight spaces. Some people keep stubs for that reason. Some use a sleeve tool to extend it. Some discard it. In each case, the pencil ends without drama. In the end, the pencil is a simple tool that fits common routines. It is held in the hand. It leaves a controllable mark. It can be sharpened. It can be erased. It wears down slowly, and then it is replaced. It stays ordinary, and that is its main feature. Now we can move on. Recap: the pencil stays common because it fits common routines and supports simple write and erase loops. Chapter 11: the wood and the quiet job of drying it. A lot of pencils begin with wood, and that wood needs to behave in a steady way. In the making process, wood is selected and dried. The simple goal is to keep the wood from changing too much later. When wood holds extra moisture, it can swell a little, then shrink again. That movement can show up as warping. It can also help loosen the metal band that holds an eraser, because the wood under the band can change shape. This is not always the same, but it is one reason drying matters. Drying is often done in a heated drying space. The point is not a dramatic change. It is a slow, controlled step, so the wood is more stable. When the wood is more stable, the pencil body is more likely to stay straight. A straighter pencil is easier to sharpen evenly. It is also easier to coat and print because the barrel is not fighting the process. Even after drying, wood can still react to humid air later. A pencil kept in a very damp place may change a little over time. A pencil kept dry tends to stay more predictable. This may vary, but in general, the early drying step is a way of setting the wood up for fewer surprises. So, before there is a core, before there is paint, before there is an eraser end, there is this simple idea. Dry the wood so it moves less later. That is a quiet foundation for everything that comes after. Recap: drying the wood helps the pencil stay straighter and helps parts stay snug later. Now we can move on. Chapter 12: Cutting the wood into slats, then letting it rest. After drying, the wood is cut into thin pieces. These pieces are often called slats. They are not pencils yet. They are more like flat strips that will become pencil bodies later. Cutting into slats is a practical step. It makes the wood the right thickness for the final barrel. When thickness is consistent, the final pencil size is more consistent too. This is not always the same in every place, but the aim is a repeatable feel in the hand. After cutting, slats can be left to rest for a while. This resting time helps the slat settle. It helps moisture even out inside the wood, so the slats are less likely to shift during the next steps. If a slat moves during machining, small misalignments can happen. Those misalignments may show up later as a pencil that sharpens strangely, or a core that sits off-center. A slat is plain and quiet. But it matters because it becomes the structure you hold. If the early wood steps are uneven, the later pencil can still write, but it may feel less predictable. A person may not see the slat stage, but they can feel its results when they sharpen, or when the pencil rolls, or when the barrel feels rough. Another small detail is that some woods tend to sharpen more cleanly than others. Some woods are chosen because they tend to sharpen smoothly and with fewer splinters. This may vary by batch and by storage. But the choice of wood and the way it is prepared can change how calm sharpening feels later. Recap: cutting wood into slats and letting them rest helps later steps stay even and predictable. Now we can move on. Chapter 13: Grooves in the slats, and why lining things up matters. When the slats are ready, grooves are cut into them. These grooves are long channels that run down the slat. Later, the core pieces sit inside these channels. The grooves need to be consistent. They do not need to be perfect in a dramatic way, but they do need to be even. If the groove shape is uneven, the core can sit too high in one place and too low in another. That can lead to a core that ends up off-center in the finished pencil. An off-center core often shows up during sharpening. The wood wall becomes thinner on one side. That thin side can splinter more easily. The point can break more often. To the user, it can feel like the pencil is just annoying. So the groove step is about alignment. It is about giving the core a straight, steady bed to rest in. When the core sits straight, the pencil can sharpen more evenly. The point can feel more stable. After the grooves are cut, glue is put into the grooves. The glue amount matters. If there is too much glue, it can squeeze out when the slats are pressed together. If there is too little glue, the core may not be held strongly enough. When the core is not held strongly enough, it can spin or snap more easily. The user does not say, "The glue was wrong." The user says, "The pencil keeps breaking," or "The core feels loose." Then the core rods are laid into the grooves. At this stage, alignment is checked. This is where the maker tries to avoid off-center problems. It is a careful, plain check because it prevents later trouble. It can be calming to think of this step as simple carpentry. A groove is a seat. The core rests in the seat. The seat needs to match the core, so the core does not wobble. Recap, even grooves and careful alignment help prevent off-center cores and repeat breakage later. Now we can move on. Chapter 14, Making the Core, with graphite and clay. The core is what leaves the mark. In many everyday pencils, the core is made from graphite blended with clay. The balance of graphite and clay helps control how the core behaves. This is where grade comes from. Some cores are made to feel harder and make a lighter line. Some are made to feel softer and make a darker line. This may vary by maker and by labeling, but the general idea is that the mix changes the writing feel. The process begins with mixing. Graphite powder is blended with clay and other added materials. The recipe is used to target a certain grade. The goal is repeatable behavior, so one pencil feels like the next pencil in the same box. After mixing, the core material is formed into long, thin rods. This forming step is done by pushing the mixture through a shape so it comes out in a consistent rod form. If the rod thickness changes a lot, the pencil can behave differently. A thicker rod can feel different under pressure, and a thinner rod can break more easily. This may vary, but the idea is that steady rods support steady writing. Graphite has a smooth feel in use. That smooth feel is part of why pencils are comfortable for many people. The mark is a controllable gray. Graphite is also stable in storage. A pencil can sit in a drawer for a long time and still work. Nothing needs to dry out, because the core is solid. But the core can still be fragile. If the core has tiny cracks from a drop, those cracks can show up later as repeated tip breakage. A person may not connect the drop to the later breakage. They just notice that the pencil now feels weak at the point. So, in a plain way, the core is a mix and a shape. The mix influences darkness and feel. The shape influences strength and how the point holds up. Recap, the graphite and clay mix shapes grade and feel, and steady rods help the pencil behave consistently. Now we can move on. Chapter 15, Drying and heating the core, then adding a smoothness treatment. After the core rods are formed, they are dried. This drying removes moisture before the next step. If the core is not dried well, it can crack more easily later. So drying is a slow, careful part of strength. Then the rods are heated in a hot kiln-like oven. This heating hardens the core. The time and temperature need to be consistent for strength. The exact settings can vary, and this is not always the same. But the basic point is steady hardening. After heating, the cores can be treated with wax or oil. This treatment is meant to improve smoothness. It can reduce scratchy feel when writing. It can help the pencil glide more easily across paper. Uniform application matters, because uneven treatment can lead to uneven feel. One pencil might feel smoother than another, even if the grade label is the same. This is also where a pencil gets part of its quiet personality. Some pencils feel like they glide easily and darken quickly, which is often linked to softer grades. Some feel like they make a lighter line and keep a point longer, which is often linked to harder grades. The core making steps support those differences. And still, even with careful making, the core can react to use. Very soft cores can smear more. A hand resting on the page can pick up graphite and move it. This may vary with paper and pressure. So the core is not only mixed and shaped. It is also dried, heated, and treated so it can write in a familiar way. Recap, drying and heating harden the core, and wax or wool can make writing feel smoother. Now we can move on. Chapter 16, Pressing the slats together and making a pencil sandwich. Once the core rods are placed into the grooved slat, another slat is placed on top. The two slats come together like a sandwich. The cores are inside, held in the grooves and in the glue. then the sandwich is pressed. The pressure needs to be even. If pressure is uneven, bonding can be weaker in some areas. That can lead to the core shifting or snapping more easily. A person might experience that as a core that keeps breaking during sharpening, or a core that feels loose. This pressing stage is plain, but it is important. It turns separate pieces into one long block that can later be shaped into many pencils. The goal is a strong bond between wood and core. There is also a simple relationship here with moisture. If wood later shrinks and swells, it can change how snug things feel. That is one reason the early drying step matters. A pencil that stays stable is less likely to develop looseness that shows up at the eraser end or around the core. In the factory, this stage is a bridge between materials and final shape. Before pressing, you have flat slats and separate rods. After pressing, you have a solid block that can be milled and cut. It can be calming to picture it. A long flat piece becomes a long solid piece. Inside it, many thin cores sit in parallel lines. The block waits for the shaping step. Recap: pressing the slats into a sandwich locks the cores into place and sets up the pencil for shaping. Now we can move on. Chapter 17: Shaping the barrel, cutting length, and sanding it smooth. After pressing, the long sandwich is shaped. It is milled into the outer form of the pencil. It might become a six-sided shape, or a round shape, or a three-sided shape. The shape can change rolling behavior on a desk. A six-sided shape resists rolling more. A round shape can roll more easily. A three-sided shape can guide finger placement for some people. This may vary by preference. Shaping also influences comfort. The edges can be sharper or more rounded. The edge rounding can change how the pencil feels in the hand. It can also change how coating covers the edges later. After shaping, the pencils are cut to length. The ends need to be square enough for later steps. The end shape affects how the eraser band sits. If the end is uneven, the band may not seat cleanly, and it can look or feel sloppy. Then sanding smooths the surfaces. Sanding helps remove rough spots. Too much sanding can change the dimensions more than intended. Too little can leave a barrel that feels rough or splintery. The user feels this right away. A rough barrel is uncomfortable. It can also catch on fabric in a pocket or a pencil case. This is the stage where the pencil becomes recognizably a pencil shape, even before paint. It can already be held. It can already be sharpened, though it might not be finished yet. It is a simple stick of wood with a core inside, shaped for a hand. And it is also where a lot of later satisfaction begins. A pencil that sharpens cleanly often starts with wood fibers that cut cleanly, and shaping that did not tear the grain. A pencil that splinters often has a rougher cut somewhere along the way. This may vary, but the link is there. Recap: shaping, cutting, and sanding turn the pressed block into comfortable barrels that are easier to coat and sharpen. Now we can move on. Chapter 18: Coating the pencil and printing the information on it. After the barrel is shaped and sanded, coatings can be added. This can be paint or lacquer. More than one coat may be applied, with drying in between. The thickness of the coating can change how it wears. Thicker coats can chip in flakes. Thinner coats can show wear quickly. This may vary, and different users read it differently. Coating has a few practical purposes. It protects the wood. It standardizes appearance. It gives a surface for printing. It can also change how the pencil feels in the hand. A slick finish can slide more in a cup or pocket. A slightly textured finish can feel more secure. This may vary by preference and by how dry a hand is. Over time, coatings wear. They can chip from impacts. They can rub away from friction in drawers and bags. Some coatings can soften or become sticky if exposed to heat or certain chemicals. This is not always the same, and it depends on the coating type. Some pencils use water-based coatings. These can have lower odor. Some pencils have bare wood instead of coating. Bare wood does not chip. It can absorb oils and moisture. It can stain. It can swell slightly over time. This may vary with storage. Then there is the printing or stamping. Grade and brand information can be applied. The printing needs to stay readable through handling. If it rubs off, the pencil becomes anonymous. It can still work, but the user loses the simple information that helps them choose again later. So the finish and the printing are not only about looks. They are part of grip feel, storage behavior, and the small clarity of knowing what kind of pencil you are holding. Recap: coating protects the wood and changes grip feel, and printed markings help keep the pencil identifiable over time. Now we can move on. Chapter 19: The metal band and the eraser, and how they change with age. Some pencils include an eraser at one end. When an eraser is included, it is held by a metal band called a ferrule. The ferrule is fitted onto the wood and crimped so it stays in place. The tightness matters. Too tight can crack wood. Too loose can slip and wiggle. A loose ferrule becomes a daily annoyance. The ferrule is often chosen because it is easy to form, light, and resistant enough to corrosion for normal use. It can dent. It can feel cold at first touch. It can also add a small end weight that shifts balance slightly. This may vary, and many people never notice it. But some people feel the difference between a pencil with an eraser end and one without. The eraser itself is made to rub away graphite. Its hardness affects how it behaves. A softer eraser can remove dark marks more easily, but it can smear. A harder eraser can leave less residue, but it can damage paper fibers more. This may vary by formulation and by paper type. Erasers also age. They can harden over time. They can become glossy on the surface. They can crack. They can pick up oils and dirt, and then erase less cleanly. A dirty surface can smear more instead of lifting graphite. Some erasers are a vinyl type. They often erase cleanly and leave crumb-like residue. They can feel slick. Some erasers are rubber type. They can harden with age and may smear if too soft. This is not always the same, and the exact feel can vary. In daily use, these differences show up as small habits. Some people press harder when an eraser is old. That can scuff paper more. Some people switch to a separate eraser. Some people choose a different pencil. So the eraser end is a small system of parts. Wood, metal band, an eraser, all touching and changing slowly with time. Recap: the ferrule holds the eraser, and both the crimp and the eraser material influence looseness, residue, and paper wear. Now we can move on. Chapter 20: Sharpening at the factory, packaging, and the simple checks that prevent surprises. Some pencils are sold pre-sharpened. When they are pre-sharpened, machines shape the tip with a consistent point form. The point form matters. A long point can write precisely, but it can snap more easily. A shorter point can be sturdier. This may vary by user habit, because people sharpen differently later. When a pencil is pre-sharpened, packaging becomes more important. The tips need protection. Trays and boxes help keep tips from being damaged. If tips are damaged in a box, the pencil may seem fragile before it is even used. So packaging is designed to protect the points and to verify that the right bundle count is included. Factories also do simple checks. They look at paint coverage, chips, imprint legibility, and straightness. They do a basic check for ferrule looseness. They can check core centering by sharpening and seeing if the core sits evenly in the wood. They can do a small writing test for smoothness. They can watch breakage during controlled sharpening. They can do a small eraser spot test. These checks are not exciting. They are meant to prevent common failures. Common failures include off-center cores, weak core bonding, wood that splinters during sharpening, uneven coating, loose ferrules, and erasers that are crumbly or hardened. When these failures are avoided, the pencil feels consistent. It sharpens in a normal way. It writes with a familiar line. It erases in a familiar way. The user does not have to think about it. That is often what people mean when they say a pencil is good. It is mostly the absence of small surprises. Now we can move on. Recap: pre-sharpened tips need protection, and simple checks help prevent the small defects that users feel as daily annoyances. Chapter 21: The pencil in the hand, and the quiet way a line begins. A pencil works because a hand holds the barrel, and fingers guide the pressure and angle. It is a small routine that repeats many times. The tip meets the paper, and the core leaves a mark through controlled rubbing. It is steady and simple. People often adjust pressure without thinking about it. A lighter touch can make a cleaner page. A heavier touch can make a line look darker, but it can also stress the point. In everyday use, darkness depends more on the core recipe than on how hard a person presses. So pressing harder does not always give the result someone expects. Sometimes it only dents the paper, or snaps the core at the tip. This is not always the same, but it is a common pattern. Angle matters too. A steeper angle can give a tighter line, because the tip is more concentrated. A shallower angle can lay down more graphite, because more of the core touches the paper. This may vary with the point shape, and with the paper surface. A fresh point can feel sharp and precise. A slightly worn point can feel smoother and calmer. There is also the simple act of setting the pencil down. A hex shape resists rolling off a desk more than a round shape. That is one reason hex barrels are common. A pencil that stays put is easier to find again, and it breaks less from falls. It is a small detail that affects the whole day. When a pencil is used in short bursts, the point dulls slowly over many moments. The pencil is picked up, used for a few words, then set down. Then it is picked up again. This is how many pencils live their lives, in small repeated actions. Recap: the pencil line starts with a simple grip and gentle pressure, and small choices shape how calm it feels. Now we can move on. Chapter 22: Grade, Darkness, and why some pencils feel lighter or darker. Many pencils use a grade system based on letters like H and B, with HB often seen as a middle grade. The basic idea is that harder grades tend to mark lighter, and softer grades tend to mark darker. Harder grades can keep a fine point longer and reduce smudging. Softer grades can shade smoothly, but they wear faster and smudge more. This may vary by labeling, and it is not always the same in every place. A middle grade like HB is often used for general writing. It is a balance. It tends to hold a point reasonably well, while still making a clear line for everyday notes. For many people, this is the default feel of a pencil. Softer grades often feel smooth. They can make a darker line with the same hand motion. They can also leave more graphite dust, and they can transfer more easily to a resting hand. So a soft grade can be pleasant for shading, but it can make pages look messier if the hand drags across the writing line. Harder grades can feel lighter. They may also feel a bit more firm on the page. They can dent paper less and keep a point longer, but the line may look faint if someone expects a darker tone. This may vary with paper, point shape, and pressure. Grade is a quiet choice that changes daily behavior. It changes how often sharpening is needed. It changes how clean the page stays. It changes how easily a mark can be erased. And it changes whether a pencil feels smooth or firm. Recap: grade shapes darkness, smudge, and point wear, so a pencil can feel very different even when it looks the same. Now we can move on. Chapter 23: Smudging, Hand Drag, and Keeping Pages Looking Calm. Graphite smudging increases when a hand rests on the writing line. The hand picks up graphite, then moves it to a new spot. This can leave drag marks across the page. It is common in long writing sessions, and it is common in note-taking. One simple way people deal with it is to place a scrap sheet under the hand. The scrap sheet takes the contact instead of the page. This is a small habit, but it can keep pages cleaner. Another way is choosing a harder grade, because harder grades tend to reduce smudging. This may vary, but it is a common adjustment. Smudging is not only on paper. Graphite can transfer to a pocket or a case. Over time, a case can develop grey dust inside. That dust can mark other items. A simple response is to store the pencil in a sleeve, or to use a pencil that has a cap. A cap can protect the tip in bags, and it can reduce tip mess. But a cap can also be lost. This is not always the same, but it is a familiar trade-off. Smudging can also show up at the bottom of a pen cup. When pencils sit point down among pens and markers, graphite dust can collect in the bottom. The cup becomes a small basin for residue. It is not a big problem, but it is part of the object's quiet footprint. Sometimes people respond to smudging by pressing harder, hoping the mark will stay put. But pressing harder can increase damage to the paper surface. It can also increase tip breakage. A lighter touch can help, along with a point that is not too sharp and not too blunt. This may vary. Recap: smudging is mostly hand contact, and small habits like a scrap sheet or a harder grade can keep things cleaner. Now we can move on. Chapter 24: The point, dull or sharp, and the way the page feels under it. A pencil point changes all day. It starts sharp, then becomes slightly blunt. Then it is sharpened again. This cycle is plain and repetitive. A very sharp point can be useful for small figures and tight writing. People doing careful margins or small numbers often keep the pencil sharp and accept more frequent sharpening waste for legibility. A sharp point can also break more easily if pressure is heavy. This is not always the same, but it is common. A slightly dull pencil can write more smoothly on rough paper than a very sharp point. Rough paper can catch a needle-like tip. A softer, slightly wider point can glide more gently. So dull is not always bad. Sometimes dull is calmer. Point shape also affects how easy it is to erase. A light guideline line is easier to erase than a deep-pressed line. When people use pencil lines as guides, they often keep the pressure light. For example, light lines can be used for envelope addressing, then erased after ink dries. In that kind of use, eraser quality matters because thin paper can pill if the eraser is rough. This may vary by paper. When a point breaks while writing, it can feel sudden. Sometimes the cause happened earlier, like a drop onto a hard floor that created tiny fractures inside the core. Those fractures may not show until later, when the point snaps again and again. The pencil seems to have changed, even though the damage was already there. So the point is not only what you see. It is also what is hidden inside, and how the pencil has been handled. And in daily life, the response is simple. Sharpen, use lighter pressure, and if the snapping continues, replace the pencil. Recap: the pencil point lives in a cycle of sharp to dull, and small changes in point shape can make writing feel smoother or more fragile. Now we can move on. Chapter 25: Sharpening, the blade, and the wood grain that decides the shavings. Sharpening removes wood and core to create a usable point. It is a small maintenance task that happens often. The sharpener is part of the pencil experience, even when it is not included. A sharp blade tends to cut cleanly. A dull blade can cause splintering, and it can leave a jagged core tip. When sharpening is rough, the pencil can start snapping in the sharpener. The user may blame the pencil, but the sharpener can be the real cause. Cleaning and maintaining the blade matters. This may vary by sharpener type, but the idea stays the same. Emptying sharpener shavings regularly helps too. A full sharpener can jam. It can encourage extra twisting and pressure. That extra pressure can stress the core. Later, the point breaks and the cycle feels frustrating. Wood grain direction affects whether sharpening produces long curls or small chips. Some sharpening produces smooth curls that peel away neatly. Other sharpening produces small chips and rough fibers. When fibers tear instead of cutting cleanly, the tip area can become ragged. That raggedness can feel unpleasant in the hand. It can also expose the core sideways. When splintering interferes with grip or safety, people often replace the pencil rather than trying to repair it. A pencil is inexpensive. It is easy to store. So replacement is a normal outcome when sharpening becomes a repeated hassle. Sharpening can also be affected by the pencil's internal condition. If the core has fractures from drops or crushing in bags, careful sharpening may still produce a tip that snaps easily. In that case, changing sharpeners may not fix the problem. The core itself may be compromised throughout the pencil. Recap: sharpening feels calm when the blade is sharp and shavings are managed, and wood grain can decide whether the cut is smooth or splintery. Now we can move on. Chapter 26: Erasing, Crumbs, and the way paper slowly changes. Erasing is part of pencil life for many people. Erasing abrades the paper surface. It is controlled rubbing, and it is never a perfect undo. After repeated erasing, a spot on the page can look worn. This may vary by paper and pressure. Eraser crumbs are part of the routine. Eraser crumbs are often intentionally designed to clump so they can be brushed away. Clumped crumbs are easier to move off the page without smearing. This small design choice supports the daily habit of brushing away crumbs. Erasers can be rubber type or vinyl type. A vinyl type often erases cleanly and leaves crumb-like residue. A rubber type can harden with age and may smear if it is too soft. This is not always the same, but it is a common observation. Erasers also change with time and storage. An eraser can harden and develop a shiny glazed surface. When that happens, erasing can become less effective. People may press harder, which can scuff paper more. Heat and sun can speed up eraser hardening. Cool storage can help slow it. This may vary. A simple practice is keeping the eraser surface clean. Gently rubbing it on clean paper can freshen the surface. That can reduce smearing and help the eraser lift graphite more cleanly. If an eraser cracks, small pieces can break off. If it becomes too hard and damages paper, people often replace the pencil or switch to a separate eraser. Some erasers smear because they are too soft or dirty. That can leave grey smears and make a patch of paper feel slick. Cleaning the eraser surface can help. If the formulation stays smear-prone, replacement is a simple end. Recap: erasing is quiet rubbing that leaves clumped crumbs, and erasers change with age, heat, and cleanliness. Now we can move on. Chapter 27: Storage, where pencils end up, and why dry places matter. Pencils live in ordinary places. They end up in desk drawers, pen cups, and a kitchen junk drawer. They end up in a home office organizer, near a calendar or a notepad. They end up in a craft bin. They end up in a toolbox, or on a garage shelf. They end up in a backpack, sometimes loose. They end up in glove compartments, especially small short pencils. This is not always the same, but it is common. Storage changes what happens next. Drawer storage can cause imprint wear and paint scuffs. The pencil rubs against other items over and over. Pen cup storage can mix pencils with pens and markers. Graphite dust can appear at the bottom. Toolbox storage can cause dents and tip breaks. A pencil in a toolbox often gets pressed against harder objects. Bag carry is a common source of damage. When a pencil is carried loose in a bag, the tip can break and the wood can dent. Later the pencil is found shortened or with a crushed metal band at the eraser end. Crushing is not always visible right away, but it can create internal fractures in the core. Moisture matters in a plain way. Leaving pencils in damp areas, like a bathroom or a damp garage corner, can lead to warping and loose eraser bands. Wood can swell in damp storage. Then it can shrink later. That movement can loosen the metal band that holds the eraser, and it can bend the barrel slightly. A warped pencil is usually replaced rather than repaired. Best practice is simple. Store dry, away from heat sources. Keep the pencil in a case if it is carried in a bag. These small choices reduce crushing, reduce damp exposure, and reduce tip damage. Recap: pencils end up in many household places, and dry protected storage reduces warping, dents, and broken tips. Now we can move on. Chapter 28: Cleaning, Residue, and the simple way people keep pencils pleasant. When people say they clean a pencil, it is usually not washing. It is mostly wiping graphite smudge, brushing eraser crumbs, and keeping the tip intact rather than washing. A pencil is wood, and soaking it is not a calm idea. Wiping the barrel with a dry cloth can remove smudges. A slightly damp cloth can help too, and then the pencil is dried promptly. This is a simple routine, and it is enough for most use. Some pencils have lacquer on the wood. Over time, lacquer can pick up stains from skin oils and marker transfer. The remedy is gentle wiping. It helps to avoid strong cleaners that soften coatings. This may vary by coating type, but gentle care is safer. Sometimes a pencil gets a sticky film. This can happen when it sits in a craft bin with glue and tape, or when it touches sticky residue. A mild soap on a cloth can help remove that film, without soaking the pencil. Then the pencil is dried promptly. It is a small fix, and it makes the pencil feel normal again. Bare wood pencils are different. Bare wood does not chip paint, but it can stain and absorb oils. It can darken where hands touch frequently. It may need wiping more often to feel clean. This is not always the same, but it is typical. Cleaning also includes keeping the eraser in good shape. A dirty eraser can smear. A hardened eraser can scuff paper. Gently rubbing the eraser on clean paper can refresh the surface. This is a small habit that supports clean pages. Recap: pencil cleaning is usually just gentle wiping and crumb brushing, with quick drying and mild care for sticky residue. Now we can move on. Chapter 29: Common mistakes that quietly wear a pencil down faster. Most pencil wear is normal, but some habits speed up the annoyances. These habits are common because they are easy to fall into. One common mistake is excessive pressure. Pressing hard can snap the core at the tip. It can also dent the paper. Some people do it without noticing, especially during fast writing or stress. A lighter touch can reduce breakage and keep the page smoother. Another common mistake is sharpening with a dull blade. A dull blade can cause splintering. It can also create jagged core tips that snap in the sharpener. It can feel like the pencil is bad when the sharpener is simply worn or dirty. Replacing or maintaining the sharpener can change the whole experience. Leaving pencils in damp areas is another pattern. Moisture cycling can warp wood and loosen the eraser band. A damp toolbox or a humid corner can slowly change the pencil. Later the pencil feels crooked or the eraser end wiggles. Dry storage is a simple prevention. Crushing in bags and drawers also matters. Tossing a pencil loose in a bag can break the tip and dent the barrel. Crushing can also create internal fractures in the core. Those fractures show up later as constant snapping while writing. Keeping the pencil in a case reduces that stress. Dropping onto hard floors is a quiet problem too. The pencil may look fine after the drop, but the core can develop tiny fractures. Later, the point snaps again and again. The pencil seems to have become fragile. Chewing the end is another habit. It can deform the wood and loosen the finish. It can create rough wood fibers. If splinters appear, replacement becomes a safety choice. Recap: pressure, dull sharpening, damp storage, crushing, drops, and chewing are the plain habits that speed up breakage and looseness. Now we can move on. Chapter 30: When people replace a pencil, and why it feels like a normal ending. A single pencil lifespan varies from days to months. It depends on how often it is sharpened and how often it breaks. Some pencils are used lightly and last a long time. Some are used heavily and shrink quickly. Replacement often happens for very boring reasons. One is that the pencil becomes too short to hold comfortably. Another is frequent tip breakage after sharpening. Another is a core that is consistently off-center, making sharpening frustrating. Another is a loose metal band at the eraser end, or an eraser that has become hardened and ineffective. These are ordinary triggers. There are also signs that look bad but do not always require replacement. Paint chipping can leave small flakes in a drawer. That can be mostly cosmetic. Some people keep using the pencil unless the feel becomes unpleasant in the hand. Imprint wear can remove grade markings. That does not stop writing, but it can make sorting harder. If sorting matters, people replace or relabel. This may vary. Barrel dents can create uncomfortable grip points. If the dents annoy the fingers, the pencil is replaced. If not, the pencil stays in use. A pencil can look worn and still work fine. Function often lasts longer than appearance. Warping is usually a replacement moment. Wood swelling from damp storage can warp a barrel. A warped pencil is usually replaced rather than repaired. It is hard to make it straight again. And straightness affects sharpening and comfort. So the end of a pencil is rarely dramatic. It is a small decision made in a drawer or at a desk. It is one pencil in a pile. It gets set aside, and another pencil takes its place. Recap: pencils are replaced for simple signs like being too short, breaking too often, or having a loose eraser end, and the ending is usually calm and ordinary. Now we can move on. Chapter 31: Variants people choose, and the quiet trade-offs they live with. Not every pencil is the same. There are small design choices that change daily routines. Some pencils are lacquered. Lacquer can provide moisture resistance and a more uniform look. Over time, lacquer can chip. Paint flakes can appear. This may vary, but it is a common trade-off. Some pencils are unpainted natural wood. Natural wood has no paint chips, and it can feel simple. It can stain and absorb oils. It may need wiping more often. It can darken where hands touch frequently. This is not always the same, but it is typical. Some pencils use composite or engineered wood. This can offer consistent dimensions. Sharpening feel can vary. Residue is similar. The daily experience depends on how the material cuts under a blade, and that may vary. Some pencils use a paper-wrapped or recycled barrel. The feel can be different from wood. Sharpening feel can differ. Residue is similar. This may vary. Some pencils are made without an eraser. An eraserless pencil has no metal band to loosen. It has less hardware debris, but it needs a separate eraser. This changes the routine, and some people prefer it. Some pencils have a cap. A cap helps protect the tip in bags. It reduces tip mess. But caps can be lost. This is a simple trade. Finish texture matters too. Some people prefer matte finishes because they feel less slippery. Finish friction can influence feel more than color. This is a quiet part of comfort. Shape matters in small ways. Hex shapes are common mainly to reduce rolling off desks. Round shapes can roll more easily. A metal band at the eraser end adds a small end weight that changes balance slightly. Some people notice, and some do not. Pre-sharpened pencils need packaging that prevents tip-to-tip impacts. If the packaging does not protect the points, the pencils may arrive with broken tips. That can make a pencil seem fragile before it is even used. Recap: pencil variants are small trade-offs in coating, barrel material, eraser hardware, cap use, finish feel, and shape. Now we can move on. Chapter 32: Reuse, Stubs, and the Quiet Reality of Disposal. Many pencils do not end their lives all at once. They become short, then they keep working for a while. A short pencil can be used for tight spaces, shop marking, or kept as a spare. It is still useful, even when it is small. Some people use a pencil extender, a simple sleeve tool that holds a stub so it feels longer in the hand. This makes it easier to use the last part of the pencil. It is a plain way to reduce waste without changing how the pencil writes. Unused pencils are often stored in a labeled container for school or office replenishment. This is a boring but effective habit. It keeps supplies predictable and easy to find. Disposal and recycling are also plain. Wood biodegrades slowly depending on conditions, and coatings can slow this further. Metal bands are recyclable as metal in principle, but small size reduces practicality. Erasers are typically not recyclable in common systems. So a pencil is a mixed object, and its parts do not always separate cleanly in everyday disposal. There are also the small leftovers of use. Pencil shavings are a mix of wood and core dust, not just wood. They collect in sharpeners and get emptied out. Eraser crumbs clump so they can be brushed away. These small residues are part of the pencil's life right up to the end. And that is the quiet loop. A pencil is bought, used, sharpened, and erased. It gets shorter. It becomes a stub. It may be extended, or saved, or finally thrown away. It is ordinary from start to finish, and that is what makes it easy to live with. Recap: pencils can be reused as stubs or with a sleeve tool, and disposal is simple but not perfectly recyclable for every part.